I remember when the great Willie Mays makes his first visit to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And he walks in and he's peering through the chicken wire, looking out onto the field of legends. And as any good center fielder would do, the first thing that he asked Buck O'Neil was, "Buck, who is that in center field?" And Buck looks at him and says, "Willie, that was you before there ever was a you." From Indianapolis, Indiana, it is the legendary Oscar Charleston, whom Buck O'Neil would say without hesitation, the greatest baseball player he ever saw. Oscar Charleston joined the Indianapolis ABCs in 1920 when the Negro Leagues were established. The consummate five-tool player. You remember the great over-the-shoulder basket catch that Willie Mays makes in the World Series there in the Polo Grounds? Well, all the old-timers in the Negro League say, had that been Oscar Charleston, he'd have been waiting for that ball to come down. That's the kind of instinctive center fielder that he was. He had the defensive abilities of Tris Speaker, the tenacity of Ty Cobb, and the bat of Babe Ruth rolled into one dynamic package. That was the great Oscar Charleston.
One out, runner at second. Oscar Charleston stepping in now. Ground ball up the middle. That's a base hit. Rounds third, headed for the plate. He will score, and they take the lead. And it's an RBI single, 1-0.
There are a lot of stories of how good Oscar Charleston was, Boog, but here's one stat that sums it up pretty well. He's the only player in MLB history to win the Triple Crown 3 times. The only other players to even do it twice are Rogers Hornsby and Ted Williams.
And Stearns makes the catch, and there's one down. The last 2 of those Charleston Triple Crown years you mentioned, Singy, 1924 and 25, he was playing for the Harrisburg Giants, 2 hours east of the Philadelphia Phillies, who were finishing second to last both years, when they could have had an all-time talent leading them if not for segregation. And it's a one-hopper off the wall. Should be extra bases. Extra bases for Oscar Charleston. So bases all loaded up. Here's Negro. And that one is lifted in the air. This one lifted to the outfield. Oscar's really hustling for it. He hangs on. What an incredible catch.
In 1921, as a member of the St. Louis Giants, Oscar Charleston put together one of the greatest single seasons not in black baseball history, but in baseball history, when he led the Negro Leagues in home runs, doubles, triples, stolen bases, and batting average in the same season. And with the integration of the stats of the Negro Leagues into the annals of Major League Baseball's record books, Oscar Charleston now stands in 3rd place on the all-time batting average list, just behind his former teammate, Josh Gibson, then Ty Cobb, and of course, the great Oscar Charleston.
Chance for the Hilldales to break it open early with Oscar Charleston digging in, and 2 runners on with nobody out. Miller back to work. See the velocity, 97 with that fastball. Swing and a high fly ball out towards right field. Brings it in. Runner tags at second. And he's in safely at third with 1 out.
In 1921, not only did Oscar Charleston win the Triple Crown playing on the St. Louis Giants, he led the league in steals too. Only one other player ever did that, Ty Cobb in 1909. But Cobb didn't also lead the league in doubles and triples like Oscar did. Unreal.
It's a bomb.
During the 1935 Negro League World Series, the Pittsburgh Crawfords, who had had one of the most dominant regular seasons in Negro League's history, found themselves in a dogfight against the New York Cubans. As a matter of fact, they trailed in that series 3-2. And in a critical, pivotal moment, Oscar Charleston is squaring off against the great Martin Dihigo. You might know him as El Maestro, the master, one of the most versatile players in baseball history. Dihigo is on the mound as 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th when Oscar Charleston hits a 3-run homer to tie the game. And that kept the Crawfords alive, and they would go on to win that 1935 Negro League World Series, much to do with the heroics of the great Oscar Charleston.
Here's Oscar Charleston to the plate with a chance to make this a big first inning for the Crawfords. And the first offering is not close.
Oscar Charleston didn't just star on that 1935 Pittsburgh Crawfords team. He was the manager, too. He skippered the team to the Negro League's World Series title, out-managing the great Martin Dihigo along the way.
2 on, 1 out. In the air, right side, Perez. And he makes the catch. Runner tags from third. He scores on the sac fly, and they take a 2-run lead.
That 1935 series had one of the greatest groups of talent ever. Pittsburgh had Oscar, Josh Gibson, Cool Papa Bell, Judy Johnson, and Leroy Matlock. And the Cubans had Martin Dihigo, Rap Dixon, and Lefty Tion.
And that one is gone over the right field wall. Center field. He's got it, and there's 2 away. Don't forget that Oscar had that incredible 1935 series when he was 38 years old. You know how many other players have batted 300 and hit 3 homers in a World Series at that age, Singy?
I think just 2. Let's see, Johnny Mize and Willie Stargell.
That is exactly right. Both those guys are Hall of Famers. He takes it himself to the bag, and that'll do it. Oscar Charleston stepping in now.
Here's another stat to put Oscar's greatness in context. Only 5 players have ever had at least 4 seasons with an OPS plus over 200, meaning they're twice as good as the average hitter. Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Barry Bonds, Rogers Hornsby.
Oscar Charleston digs in against Martin Dihigo with a chance to win it for the Crawfords. And that catches the low inside corner. Good fastball.
Well, 2 of the all-time best going toe-to-toe right here. Martin Dihigo on the bump. Oscar Charleston in the box trying to tie up the game.
The tying run at the plate.
I got 1 ball, 1 strike.
In the dirt, blocked. Nothing happening on the bases, though. That one is crushed, and this series will continue. Oscar Charleston blasts a 3-run.
Buck O'Neil would say of Oscar Charleston that he was the strongest man he ever saw playing this game. He says Charleston could take a baseball, put it between both palms, and turn the leather on the baseball. Just freakishly strong. Of course, he was also extremely tough. He enlisted in the U.S. Army when he was 15 years old. Now, he lied about his age to get in, but can you imagine a 15-year-old serving his country? Oscar Charleston would eventually serve during World War I and would come back home and play for his native Indianapolis ABCs, but you could tell how tough he was. He once snatched the hood off of a Ku Klux Klansman and lived to tell about it. In Cuba, there's the great story of him going on a play home, and he barrels over the Cuban catcher, and it incites a fight. And back then, the military was the security for those games. And so they were prepared to arrest Charleston. And the general of the army said, no, no, any man that strong, don't bother him. That was Oscar Charleston.
Oscar Charleston steps in for the Hilldales with runners at the corners and nobody out. A big opportunity. First pitch doesn't find the zone. Swing and a ball driven out to center. Back there. He's got it. Runner tagging from third. And they'll score first. It's 1-0.
Chet Brewer, one of the best pitchers of the Negro League, said he loved to pitch when Oscar Charleston was playing first base because Oscar was so strong that he could take a new baseball, turn it between his hands, and open up the seams.
Popped foul out of play off to the right. Oscar was definitely feared for his ability just as much as his strength. Connie Johnson, who later pitched for the White Sox and Orioles, said he'd come to bat with the score tied and they'd walk him. I wondered why until one day they pitched to him and he hit it out of the park. This one is crushed and it's gonna go. Oscar Charleston with a no-doubt home run.
It wasn't just Negro Leaguers who knew how good Oscar was. In 37 games against white major leaguers, Boog, Oscar hit .355 with 10 homers, 7 steals, and 38 RBI. And he wasn't facing scrubs either. He got his hits off of Bob Feller and Walter Johnson and homered off of Lefty Grove.
Yeah, whenever I miss those days, visit my LA. Under the ground, running around, we was them kids that played.
Oscar Charleston played for 43 years in the Negro League. That is unbelievable. And then, of course, Oscar Charleston would become a manager. As tenacious as Oscar Charleston was on the field, he was the complete opposite off the field, where he was a gentle giant, nurturing his ball players. And 3 of those ball players, while managing the Indianapolis Clowns, were the 3 pioneering women who called the Negro Leagues home. Tony Stone, Mamie Peanut Johnson, and Connie Morgan. And Charleston had the tremendous ability to instill great confidence in his players, which certainly belied how he performed on the field. But maybe that's the beauty of Oscar Charleston, who would also go on to scout for Branch Rickey's Brooklyn Brown Dodgers, and was part of the effort that ultimately landed us Jackie Robinson, who was playing for the Kansas City Monarchs. So Oscar Charleston has a tremendous baseball career from every facet of the game. and it led him into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1976.
Here's the great Oscar Charleston stepping in for Pittsburgh to face Bill Foster.
Oscar Charleston was as great a manager and scout as he was a player, Boog. When he was running the Brooklyn Brown Dodgers, he recommended a catcher to Dodgers general manager Branch Rickey. That was future three-time MVP and Hall of Famer Roy Campanella.
In the air, left field. Sanders puts it away, and there's two down.
Most of what we know of Oscar is built on word of mouth. Since we don't have any footage of him playing, even his height's not certain. Some people say he was 6 feet tall. His biographer said he was 5'8" or 5'9", and Buck O'Neil put him at 5'11".
A lot of the stories about Oscar are a little hazy, too, but the legendary Honus Wagner once gave a very clear quote in the Pittsburgh Courier. Quote, "I've seen all the great players, and I have yet to see one any greater than Charleston." Out of here!